It's always nice to give people something that you have made for Christmas. It may be or may not be less expensive, but it shows that you put extra time and extra thought into their gift. Today I'm going to make something called garden mustard relish as a food gift that you could give away. You could give this away as a jar alone, or you could put it in a basket with other things, but it's something that you can make either in big or small to give to people that you love. Well, first thing we need to do, since this is a home canned item that you need to prepare for the shelf, is to get the flats ready. Now you can get any kind of jars. The recipe calls for 1 cup size jars or half pint size. You can also get these little half size of a cup, 4-ounce jars that make real cute gifts. And because this is a relish and not something somebody's probably going to use in bulk, it's a really good size. The lids come in different styles, and you can get the standard white or gold. I've got something that looks kind of Christmassy today. And as we prepare the flats, what you want to do is put them into the jar in opposite directions. And this will keep them from sticking together later on when you're ready to use them. Pour some boiling water over them, and just let them sit until everything else is ready. Okay, so we'll set those aside. Now the next step is to get the jars ready too. Now this particular recipe is going to go in the canner for 10 minutes. That means the jars don't have to be sterilized, they just need to be clean. But because the food we're putting in is going to be hot, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in my water bath canner and leave them there until I'm ready for them. That will sterilize them, although it's not necessary that it be done. You filled the water bath canner about half full with water. Submerge the jars. This makes about 3 cups or 3 cup sizes, and if you're using the small ones, you'd want to put in 6 jars. It may not fill up one of the jars completely full, but it should come close. Now for the recipe itself, we're going to go ahead and begin adding the ingredients to the pot. This is fairly easy to do. What we have here is 1 cup of carrots that I've cut fairly fine. Now because this is a gift and I want it to look special, I didn't use a food processor. I wanted everything to be cut fairly precisely and uniformly. I've also got 1/2 of a cup of green pepper that's going in here, 1/2 of a cup of cucumber that I peeled and cut in a similar fashion, and lastly I've got 1/4 of a cup of yellow onion. You could use a sweet onion if you had it. And then to that I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, 1/2 a teaspoon of celery seed, 1/2 a teaspoon of ground ginger, and 2 tablespoons of yellow prepared mustard. Now this doesn't look like a lot of food to go in here as far as liquid, but I'm also going to add to this 1/4 of a cup of white vinegar. The last thing that's going in is 1 box of powdered pectin, and you do need to make sure that you use the powdered variety of pectin when you do this. We're going to stir this together, and this part is a little bit hard to tell when you reach the appropriate level, because what has to happen here is that it has to come to a full rolling boil that can't be stirred down. But because there is so little liquid in here, it's a little bit harder to tell when that happens than with some of the traditional jam and jelly recipes that we use. This isn't a traditional relish. It is more like a jam or actually a jelly or a preserve. Once you get that going, notice that it is hard to tell it's a full rolling boil, but what is there is not being able to be stirred down. We're going to stir in 2 cups of sugar, and this is going to turn this whole mass into a lot more liquid fairly quickly, but we need to continue stirring. You need to stir constantly through this whole process. And what you'll see happen is that it does melt in, and the whole thing becomes much more easy to stir and liquefied. And we're going to bring this back again to a full rolling boil and let it boil so that it can't be stirred down for exactly 1 minute. This has been going at a full boil. As you can see, it doesn't boil down. It's got just a couple of more seconds. You want to make sure that you time this precisely so that you can make sure that it does not go too long. Now once that's done, the next step is to simply skim off the foam. Now there are special tools for skimming off the foam, and I've got one here. And the problem is sometimes they take off too many other things, and so I generally find that the traditional old-time method of just a metal spoon works as well as anything. And you don't need to worry about getting every little bit off, and if you get too many of the vegetables off, you can always put those back in. but you get the gist of the idea. I'm going to go ahead and proceed on this, even though we would probably skim more foam off. Now, using a funnel, a canning funnel, you're just going to pour this in. Now, the next thing that you need to make sure that you do is you fill the jars correctly. One of the problems with this kind of thing is that people don't fill the jars up enough. We want to fill them up so they're 1/8 of an inch from the top of the jar. That means there's barely much room for anything between the flat and the lid. You get that up there pretty much as full as it'll go. And then you get one of your cleaned flats that have been prepared. They're nice and warm. And you're going to get ready to cover that. At this point, you're going to want to use a little piece of a paper towel. Get it wet and go around the rim so that you make sure there's nothing stuck on there. Get one of your flats, put that on, and then tighten the jar firmly tight. Now you want to make sure that you work fairly quickly so that all jars get ready about the same time. This one, you can notice that there's going to be some floating. We're going to put it in the water bath canner. It's going to be in there when the water comes back to a boil after the jars are in there. It'll be in there for 10 minutes. And that'll make sure that the space between the flat and the top of the jar, that air that's full of microorganisms is evacuated so that you then do in fact have a vacuum and then the jars are safe and will last and not spoil for a period of time on the shelf. Once they're done, you're ready to package them up. Remember, you're going to set these down after they come out. You're going to let them set for 12 to 24 hours to make sure that the seal is had time to take before you disturb the jars. Then you can decide how you want to present them to your friends and family. Either cut a circle with some Christmas fabric and tie a ribbon around it, or just present them as is. If you have time, make them up a couple of weeks before the holidays, before you give them, so that you have time for the flavors to truly blend. I think this is something that if you let them know it doesn't go on toast in the morning, that it'll be great with chicken or turkey or ham as a side with some of those, or even cooking with some of those as a glaze, that people are really going to enjoy. But you may want to let them know that it's not for toast and it's not for breakfast. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.